those talks. I look forward to hear again from Neil. No? A little background just to share, if I could display a little background about Neil. Okay. While his topic is about creating a new paradigm in leadership, a little background. Neil is an educator and also an elected official. So this is a rundown of his career from 2002 up to the present. So he has so much wealth of experience uh, in the role and in working together with others. So we look forward to hear. And I will turn over this floor to Neil. Neil, the floor is yours.
Raymond, thank you for the warm welcome, and great to be with international friends again from across the globe, not only Asia today, but America and Africa. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Sung-Ho, for the re-invite. So just briefly, keeping on that slide, can you kindly, if it's okay, Raymond, can you put the slide back up again? And
Sure,
I'll
sure.
ask you when to change the slides, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So I go forward? Yeah.
Yes, perfect. So as Raymond said, I started my career as a teacher, got promoted to the level of my incompetence, and the latter part of my career, I managed schools in Aberdeen City. As Raymond said, I then was elected in the elections of 2021 in Scotland, and I briefly was the leader of Moray Council, which is a small region in the north of Scotland. So I was the leader of that council. I still am a politician, but I resigned from my political party, and I'm now an independent politician, which for me sits better because any inquiries that come in locally, I can deal with straight away. I found that since I went to become an independent member, there's not as much time taken up with political meetings, which is a good thing. And that's allowed me to come back and do some more teaching. I'm actually sitting in a school just now. I've been helping a school since September in leading their modern languages and their business faculty. So I'm back doing some teaching as well. As this slide shows, many of you will know from the last time I was in Korea, I've been a board director of many organisations. I've written many of the Scottish textbooks that are used in schools. And in 2020, I was appointed as an honorary colonel by the Ministry of Defence for the Army Cadet Force. So I now lead the Army Cadet Force in the far north of Scotland. Whilst I'm not operational, I wouldn't be deployed in a war. My role is to have oversight of the ethics and the good spirit of the battalion that I lead. So the next slide, Raymond, if that's okay. It's a very long abstract, which I hope Sung-Ho will share after the presentation. And the abstract basically outlines the cooperative leadership model that I believe would support more sustainable leadership, but certainly more peaceful leadership. The term leadership has been used for many decades. The 1840s, it started to become a regularly used term, and it's changed in its focus very much so over the years. Just now, I think we're in a leadership crisis. We know that with Donald Trump in America. We know that with many European countries turning to the right. And we know that many people are becoming disillusioned with the current political leadership that they're experiencing, and they're looking to alternatives. So my aim with this model is really for people to consider cooperative leadership as a leadership approach, for educators to consider cooperative learning as an approach, and hopefully today we can consider some of the changes it would make to society. Now, today's lecture I'm giving is very much so theory, but as Raymond, Sung Ho and Barry know well, I far more prefer the practical implementation, getting out to schools, getting out with SMEs and charities to support their development in this area. So next slide, please, Raymond. Thank you for helping. Thank you. So the first big challenge we are faced with today, we know only too well that we're more connected in the world than we've ever been before. Here is me speaking to colleagues in South Korea, Japan, America, across Africa from a phone device in the north of Scotland. But despite the fact that we're more connected, we're actually more isolated and we're more fragmented as a global citizenship than we've ever been before. Next slide, please, Raymond. So, in terms of learning, we have more access to learning than we ever have before. The biggest educator now isn't our schools, it isn't our universities. The biggest educator in the world is Google, and we can access knowledge anywhere, anytime, and any amount of knowledge that we want to. But it seems as though the world, despite having knowledge at its fingertips, continues to repeat the mistakes of the past, and we're not learning lessons as a civilization. Next slide, please, Raymond. So, in terms of leadership, we know that the importance of cooperating and involving all in decision making, democratic leadership that we all hope persists. And I know that some countries that we've supported as a group before have had major risks presented to their democracy. So we know that that's the important way to run a country, an organisation, a football team, an army battalion. But it feels as though leadership approaches are becoming more commanding and controlling. So that is the dilemmas that we're faced with today, both in terms of our global connectedness, our leadership, and our learning. If you go on to the next slide, please, Raymond. In most parliaments in the world, the parliament isn't officially in sitting unless the mace is in place. And most parliaments have this symbolic mace that sits right at the front of the debating chamber, which is quite an ironic device because a mace historically was to beat people up with. And yet we use the mace as a symbolic symbol of democracy. In Scotland, this is the mace that sits in our parliament. It's gold and silver, and inscribed inside it are the words wisdom, compassion, integrity, and respect. The words that we want for all of our Scottish citizens to be. And if we go on to the next slide, there is a lot of writing on the next slides. I don't expect you to read it all, but that is the curriculum in Scottish schools. But the centre of the curriculum is the learners and their values that we hope that they become filled with wisdom, with compassion, and with integrity and respect. Thank you, Raven. Next slides. So today's session, many of you will come from a research background, so you would be in that left-hand column where you're looking for a research for description. Naturally, as a politician now, I'm more so in the middle camp where I'm making policies and I'm voting on policies. And as a result, the research I'm looking for is to try and explain why outcomes are different and how we can improve outcomes for people. And also I'm teaching, so the far right-hand column, we're doing research for improvement. How can we improve, for example, a particular young person's results? How can we take Logan or Jenna and how can we make their results better than what they are just now? So that would be an example of research for improvement. Next slide. Excuse me. Forming a new narrative There's two ways to do that. We either observe how leadership works and we try to categorize it, and we then make the model. Or we go from the top of the triangle down, where what we do is come up with the model, try to categorize it, and then try to make it work in practice. And my own model is working down the way. So I'm predicting that cooperative leadership would work better. So it's a theory that we're trying to see if it would work. And I'm still now, many years after first developing this, still shaping it and still coming up with other ideas, which I hope we'll get more later today. Next slide, please. Thank you. In Scottish schools, we are inspected by Her Majesty's or His Majesty's Inspector of Education. So the King appoints a number of inspectors of schools. They will go out to schools, they will inspect the schools, and they'll give a grading to the schools. Now, one of the things the schools are graded on is leadership and management. And the word leadership has grown in its use over the last 2 decades. You can see the document in 2006 had 67 mentions of manager and 331 of leadership, and we can see how that changes over time. So there's more and more recognition that leadership and management is important for improving things for people. Raymond, can I have the next slide and probably skip on to the next one again, please? So I mentioned earlier that models of leadership, and I know that Raymond is a particularly apt leadership coach. I know he works professionally in that field, but the model of leadership has changed quite significantly. And what I've tried to do here is almost a timeline where the most recent leadership models relate to distributed leadership, and I'm trying to get us into that cooperative leadership category at the very, very end. And next slide, please. Thank you. The waves of different leadership models can broadly be categorized into these forms, where at the start of the century, the 20th century, the leader was really controlling more than anything else. And that presented a particular problem for many organizations, where command and control did not leave results. Excuse me 1 second. So the controller leadership model didn't work for many organizations. If we moved towards a more human relations-based approach, sadly in the 80s, we went into a very neoliberalist right-wing approach to leadership, where transformational leadership was supposed to turn around organizations, but actually became quite a toxic leadership. And it became a leadership environment where bullying and harassment would go on. And that's why we're trying to move into this far right leadership, where it's about looking after the environment, looking after each other, working as cooperative collectives, working as servants for the people, as opposed to being commanders and controllers. Next slide, please, Raymond. Thank you. One of the big challenges of the leader is to look into the future and to try and anticipate what's going to happen next and be able to deal with it almost before it happens. So the very first bar, the grey bar, the purple bar, is how most leaders operate. They anticipate what's coming in the short term, but they have very little strategic thoughts into the mid or long term, which impact. Very occasionally, we have leaders who get into that midterm. They're thinking about the sort of 5 to 10 year period, and how can we work towards things during that period. And then the very end, your top leaders, they're able to see right into the distance, and they're able to think strategically about what's going to happen and how we're going to shape an organisation for the future. But very few leaders get into that end space. In a football term, Alex Ferguson, who was Manchester United's very successful manager, he was always investing in youth players, many of whom went on to stunning international success with the England football team. He would be an example of somebody who was always looking to the long term. He wasn't just looking at the here and now, he was looking at the long term. The next again slides is we ran a competition. I think, Sunko, I think you took part in this competition where we asked people to define what they thought leadership was. And we found that people had lots of different definitions. But again, many of them were controlling and many of them were commanding, as opposed to inspiring others. But I'm very pleased to see in the bottom right-hand corner, that photograph there is Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney, who took part in the competition. And he said that leadership is about inspiring other people. Next slide, we can skip over onto the next one, please. Thank you. One of the models that's constantly referred to as distributed leadership. Distributed leadership, for me, becomes a passing of responsibility, almost a slopey shoulders, where senior leaders take the things that they don't particularly like doing and they pass it to the level below. So in a school, a head teacher, deputy head may pass things to a head of faculty or a department head. In an army scenario, a brigadier may pass tasks that are unpalatable down to a captain or a major to do. And it's really about abdicating responsibility. But distributed leadership has become a regularly used phrase within leadership worlds. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So, the principles of the model that I'm trying to promote here, which is called cooperative leadership, comes from cooperative learning. So after the Second World War, a group of North American and Canadian researchers became very concerned that the world had gone to war for a second time. And their concern was that how could society fragment so quickly, given it had seen the horrors of the First World War, 1914 to 1918, how could they, in 1939 to 1945, repeat the horrors again? Mass killings, huge numbers injured, families broken apart, whole towns blown apart. So these researchers looked at how groups come together and how groups break up. And in the process of doing so, they came up with 5 principles that make groups stick together, that make teams stick together, make organizations stick together, makes countries cohesive, but also makes international peace. And the 5 principles they came up with, which should have really been taken from theory into practice by leaders, was first used in school classrooms. So school classrooms used what was called the cooperative leadership model. And the model is based on these 5 principles. So the first slide, please, thank you. So the first of the principles is group processing. So basically, our groups need to have very strong connections before they can achieve anything together. So we spend a lot of time on getting groups to come together and to experience working together before we set them off on tasks. In the private sector, if we had a large oil and gas, oil extraction project, we would spend a lot of money on teams playing golf together, going to the pub together, going to trips together, to help them to work better as a team before they went anywhere near the task. Obviously, Raymond mentioned, Raymond and I going out when we were in Korea, we went out, had beers together, we had meals in the chicken restaurants together. So we were bonding, we were closer, and as a result, we've kept in touch. We are still a very strong unit because we had a close bond, and some of that was about eating together and drinking together. The process of breaking bread is well known in many religions, that helps people to stick together. If we go on to the next slide, the top principle is positive interdependence. Most of our teams and most of society is positively independent. We all work in separate silos. But the principle of cooperative learning is we shouldn't work in silos, we should connect together. Where we're connected, there is strength, and that allows us to work together far, far more effectively. The next slide is about individual and group accountability. And I thank Sung Ho for one of the most intriguing conversations I had with a Chinese professor of Chinese culture when I was over in South Korea, because we talked about that in many societies there is individual accountability, but where is the group accountability? And he talked about how within Asian leadership models there tends to be more focus on, if the task is successful, everyone gets the credit. If the task is unsuccessful, the leader takes the blame. So in a Western society, if the task is successful, the leader takes the credit. If the task fails, the leader tends to blame the team. Okay, so a different approach. Next slide is highlighting that these two principles at the top are ultimately management. That's what we're looking at there. Next slide, please, Raymond, thank you. At the bottom, we have social skills, and there needs to be a focus on our social skills. It sounds very easy, but our basic social skills of listening, our basic social skills of cooperating, of having empathy, as Sung Ho said before, needs to be something that's positively enacted. Sometimes we get so caught up in the work, we forget about the social interactions that help us to achieve that work. So a focus on social skills is important. And then lastly, face-to-face interactions. For face-to-face interactions, we need to spend more time on one-to-ones with people. My great-grandfather was a prison governor. He ran prisons in Scotland, and he used to say that most of his problems were sorted out by sitting down and having a pipe and a conversation with somebody to find out what the issues were and to resolve them. Skip on to the next slide, please. Thank you. And that really is the overview of the whole of the framework. It's quite a basic framework, but it underpins that leadership has 5 different elements to it that are required. So the next slides would normally be a set of activities that we would run through, and those activities would take us from the theory to some practice-based examples. And we particularly do this with lecturers, with teachers, with college lecturers, to try and enhance their skills of building cooperative leaders amongst our young people, in the hope that in years to come, they will become leaders of big organisations, of army battalions, of countries, and hopefully United Nations, international leaders. They will become peacekeepers. So those are the principles. But just quickly, I'm going to walk you through some of the activities that we would do to help our educators or pedagogues to try out some of these things. And what I'll do is I'll run through them. I'm conscious that I may need to change phones. My battery's running a bit low on this one. If I do go offline, I'll get a plug point and just come back online again. But hopefully we're able to run through them and then open the floor to a wider discussion about, is cooperative leadership a viable model? So next slide, please, Raymond. So some of the things that we would do with young people, graffiti boards, where rather than the teacher telling all the children the knowledge, boards up in the wall where the young people are putting their knowledge into the classroom, or even online, getting them to put their ideas up online. Expert gallery tour is another technique we use, where young people become experts in a particular area, and then they spend time delivering that area to other people. Stand and deliver is what it says. We put the pressure onto the learners to let them actually deliver the learning. So rather than it being teacher-led, they're doing discovery-based learning. And all the research seems to show that develops better leadership skills than them being led through it by pedagogues and teachers. Next again, slide, Raymond, and next one again, and next one again. And one more, please. Thank you. So when I was presenting this in the Scottish Parliament, we had a graffiti board up, and we asked for young people to show the politicians putting their ideas as to how Scottish education is led. Is it led well? And how is it working? So we would ask them to go and do that, and then to come up with a set of words, and then out of it, what was the one word that was the most common? So we had the learning goal, but there was also a social goal, because the belief is that, as I said earlier, social skills don't just come naturally; they need to be taught and they need to be developed. So in this case, the social skill was listening to others for understanding. So we would ask them to listen very carefully to the views of others to help to come up with the solution. If we skip on 2 slides, thank you. Next one. That brings up the description. Thank you. So the expert gallery tour, there's a description there. You can take that away and use that in your setting if you wish. Again, there was a learning goal. So this one was to review the past, the present, and the future of a particular area of education. And the social goal was developing a deeper analysis of points given by your peers. So somebody will tell you something and you develop a deeper understanding. So that's another example of a task we would use. And there's many more examples there. But I'm conscious that I'm nearing now 50 minutes to an hour of me talking at you. So I'll start to wind up. Ultimately, the message that I'm giving is that we've spent decades on command and control leadership models, and they're not working. The world is potentially, very dangerously, rumbling towards World War III. And unless we quickly come up with different leadership approaches, the reality is in Ukraine, and indeed the wars which may well spark in Southeast Asia, with the continued tensions between countries there, could envelop the world into a further war. And with that, sorry but sad note, I'll stop presenting and open for Raymond to go into moderation and discussion. And again, I'll apologise if my screen goes off. I'll come back on as quickly as I can, but it might be that I lose reception in a minute or so.
Thank you very much, Neil, for giving us a good quick overview of this new paradigm of cooperative leadership and how it falls into all of the different thoughts on leadership throughout the years. So I'd like to open this discussion to our audience who would like to ask questions or maybe comment on what has been shared by Neil. Who would like to start? Kindly raise your hand so we can direct to you and unmute. Okay, anybody with their first question?
Okay.
Neil, if I may start, because we have been discussing this prior to, and we were saying we wonder how the transition has been from the Queen to King Charles, and how that model, uh, which you are promoting in schools, could could eventually impact on all other forms of leadership that we know today.
I'm afraid the nail, disappeared.
Did Neil drop off from our call?
Yeah, maybe some technical problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Raymond, would you elaborate some part as
Okay.
an expert? You are an expert. Okay.
Well, I like how he presented the historical uh, ways that eventually brought us to this thinking of collaborative from the original uh, they say command do approach. You command and you control, and then towards a more inclusive and participative form of leadership, and that so many different cultures may have evolved in so many different ways, but you can see a pattern, and that as he was pointing out, we could all eventually learn from one another's unique type of leadership experience, and hopefully usher in a new era where we could genuinely have more participation, because we said the challenge of leadership sometimes is they're not listening enough to what the people are really saying. Okay, and that the way by which decisions are made, see, the collective wisdom of people, how you could have the best minds really uh, stepping up and participating because they all have their voices. See, so all of these freedoms, no, in varying degrees, no, need to be protected. No, our right to express ourselves and our right to choose who our leaders will be, who will chart our destiny. So, you can see the evolution, but at the same time, we see vestiges of how, for example, the church that Jesus started 2,000 years ago is still in the process of a succession from Saint Peter, no? From Jesus assigning Saint Peter to whoever the next pope will be based on the conclave, no? While over the years they may have tweaked or or somehow improved the way they choose the next leader. Right? If you remember, during biblical times, they were drawing sticks, and later on, whoever speaks the word. No? So it's all different ways of bringing out people's voices. No? So that's why it's interesting how from Neil's presentation, we have a flavor of how it may have evolved over the years, but we also need to see how our unique culture, no, will have its own way of you know developing its own approach. No, Thailand, for example, the role of the monarchy and the role of the military seems to be major factors, not just the vote of individual voters. No? So I was there during your last election. So, and they've been saying unless they change the constitution and the and the and the selection of your senators, no. So interesting here in the Philippines, on May 12, we will be electing our senators and local officials. No? It's a midterm election. So again, in our own unique culture, I think we all need to move towards getting the wisdom of having collective leadership rather than relying too much on one person who you can blame and who has all the power. I mean, concentration of too much power, we know can can lead to abuse. No, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So there has to be check and balance. Hey, Rebecca, you raise your hand, please. Kindly unmute.
Oh, I very, very interesting discussion topic today and very informative. I I just want to make a comment that may lead into a discussion from various perspectives, including the perspective of different cultures. Um, we have been observing and hearing a lot about leadership. We have authoritarian, we have cooperative, we have this new one, cooperative, which is a very interesting concept. But we also know the saying that a good leader is more effective and or is as good as the as followership. So what I gathered from this presentation today is that in order to be in a cooperative and sharing mode, we have to educate the followers. The followers have to know their rights. They have to know, and they have a voice and a clear venue for participating in the leadership. So I think this new idea of cooperative leadership is the way forward because many times our politicians will come in and tell us lies, and they're the ones, the more lies they tell, the more they're educated because the electors, the population is blinded. They don't see between the lines. And so this new concept, this new development, if it is well executed, I'm sure that everyone's voice will be heard and they will move the participatory leadership to a higher level where people really understand how leaders affect their day-to-day activities, even the air they breathe, even the air, the water we drink. Leaders, good leaders, bad leaders make a difference in so many ways and impacts our lives in many different ways. So I listened intently, and I was just thinking that if more and more leaders or future leaders would be introduced to this new model, I'm talking now to our students, our future leaders, early on, sensitizing them. You know, it begins at the grassroots and in the classroom. So our role as educators can also play a major role, major and impact the way our students sensitize the community. A good leader is not just a charismatic, smart speaking person. A good leader is one who listens, who doesn't impose. The good leader is one who invites new ideas. So I'm very happy that Neil was able to introduce us to this. Like you said earlier, Raymond, tracing the history of leadership. And Bernard mentioned McGregor. When we were students, we, we were indoctrinated with that new approach, but things are changing. That's all I wanted to say and to thank everyone for participating.
Thank you, Rebecca. These are very good insight that we have to really start from the next generation and really they mature enough from the individual to the relationship to the organizations that they will form with the mindset of that, no? Because leadership will, you're right, affect everything. It will affect whether we will be prosperous, whether we will be healthy, whether we will enjoy peace, or whether we will go to war. Okay, so thank you so much. Interesting insight that you shared, Rebecca, and appreciating Neil's input. Bernard, you have your hand raised. Kindly unmute.
Yeah. Hi, Becca. Dr. Sulit.
Hi.
Yeah, Mary Jo. So Neil has presented this before, But of course, after so many years, he has updated his material, and he has more experience, of course, in other fields besides education. So I've been thinking about this cooperative leadership for years now. In fact, I've cited Neil, I think, twice already in my columns. But it is only now that the appropriate metaphor has come up. For me, no, seriously, if I imagine collective or cooperative leadership, it is only now that I have a mental picture in the form of a poster, which I would like to share. So to me, this is a good metaphor for cooperative leadership, because I think it is very difficult to expect, perfect individuals to be leaders. They're more likely to have mental health issues, because leadership, like revolution, is not for the same. So I hope Neil is able to come back soon. So I think I'll write another column on cooperative leadership, but the new Avengers will be my mental,
Yeah.
my poster for the concept. Thank you.
The strength that comes from the diversity, and that in spite of individuals being flawed, they say you have gaps, I have gaps, but we can try to close all the gaps if we are collaborative and we are supportive of one another. So you can see, you really have to work from the level of the individual's maturity, cultivate the quality of the relationship where people will really be open and be more trusting of one another, and then designing a good way of defining roles and relationships in designing organizations that can really harness the collective wisdom of people. Listen also to the collective conscience of people, like the conclave, praying over the Holy Spirit to lead them to choose who their next leader will be. So you really have to have all the aspects of the body, the heart, the mind, and the spirit to really want to make good things happen. And it's not just what one person wants, but it's really the point of view of win-win from a synergistic point of view. We always, as I've shared when we talk about habit 6, no, building synergy, the foundation of which is really effective communication, when we seek to understand before seeking to be understood, listening, and that's grounded on win-win, really looking after one another as someone who's welfare we should look after. I mean, if we can cultivate win-win thinking and mutual understanding, eventually we make decisions, no, that are really collaborative. It really doesn't have to come from the mind of one person, but has to collect the wisdom of people around them. Yes, please. Mary, kindly unmute. You raise your
Sorry,
hand. Yeah.
I couldn't find my raise hand in all of
It's okay.
my.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I saw your hand.
I am very grateful for this session and puzzling over the whole question of how we move from this cooperative leadership mindset within the reality of systems that are definitely set up to be hierarchical. They are, whether they are in business, you have your CEO and your executive group, and or whether you are talking about political systems where ultimately the amount of power that is in the executive has been demonstrated in my country to a shockingly high level. I had no idea how much power the executive had. But so the question that I'm puzzling over as I'm absorbing how much I learned from this presentation, and I'm very grateful to have listened, is how do you move from the activities and the mindsets of the group discussion to actually developing the skills so that there's an activity or a conscious awareness of what the principles are, what are the structures that make this a positive interaction between the cooperative leadership and the let's call it executive autocratic leaders. In every organization there is a hierarchy, so there's a gap between. There's something that in the process, the learning process, I feel as though there should be a more explicit skill building awareness that okay, now your role is to make the decision. So many times you have the group interacting to come to some type of recommendations, and then they present the information up to decision makers. That's the reality. There's something that I feel is an assumption that we have, that the leadership actually has the skills to listen, be open-minded, transparent, accountable. There's a gap for me. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. It's the reality of our cooperative mindset, and with all of the principles that everyone has valued, and then with this type of culture is interacting with a much more top-down controlling system. So how do we develop the stronger communication process, and not just communication, but also the structures, the level of transparency, et cetera. So we know what happens, or there's a way of helping those who are ultimately going to be in leadership position with a lot of power to have the skills to include in their advisors those who know how to challenge them. Those who there's a gap that I feel has been missing in our training. I'm working with executives right now on sustainability issues, and that conversation is a huge challenge. So I'm sorry to have such a long response. I'm trying to puzzle out the connection here between the hierarchy and the cooperative groups. So that's where my mind is right now.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Mary. Neil is back. I hope you were able to listen to Mary's point and maybe comment on that.
Yeah, I apologise
see you.
sincerely. I'm having all sorts of technical fun this morning. If it cuts out again, I'll be back in straight away. I just caught the tail end of it, and yeah, that's where the tension is between the hierarchy who've got official leadership positions and those who are doing the work. I totally agree with that. Interestingly, I do a lot of work with the British Army, and the Army started to think about cooperative leadership because they were talking about this concept of a good idea has no rank. In every organisation, there are problems, and often the solutions are on the shop floor. People will go and we get stuck in this position where we just expect the solution will always be with the chief executive, etc. But how do you create that is the problem. How do you create that way of working? And I think it's about making sure that the two teams, that there's not two teams, it's not a leadership cast and a worker cast, that everyone is in that group formation, everyone is equal, everyone comes together as equal, which is difficult when there's pay differentials and obviously titles. The Army went through the work I was doing with the Army quite a regressive period, and I was not happy with where they were going. They started to talk about not leadership but followership, and I thought, no, we're going back to this command and control, and I know why they did it. Partly because in peacetime, big organisations in the military are looking for things to do, and they come up with all sorts of wacky ideas, and it was bonkers. But no, it's a very good point, and thank you for making it. I'm interested to hear you do work in leadership consultancy, so it'd be nice to connect after this as well. So, no, good point, well made. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I may also share, I think it's important from the executive point of view that you have to you have to look at the existing culture. So let's face it, it's not something you can change overnight. That's why it's generational. We have to teach our young children to think in this manner, because only until you have a conscious view of a culture you would like to design that will have to deal with the vestiges of the old command and control towards a more, inspire and unleash people. Because once people buy into the same future, then they will be excited to lend their gifts in making that future a reality. But we have the reality of current structures today that was originally designed for command and control. Rather than bring down the decision to the lower level, people out there who know and can make better decision, informing people at the top. So I guess it goes both ways, no, up and down. So that at the policy level, you can now create policy that will allow for these changes to happen, because the existing structure, let's face it, is not designed in that way. But we have to find a way to make it more open and for the next generation. So I've said we have to educate the individual, cultivate the quality of the relationship, the maturity of individuals, so that when they get into their role, they can embrace their leadership role. We always say it's not a position, it's a choice. Individuals can make self-empowerment decision, so that they know when is it time for me to just sit down and observe first, wait until told, or maybe bring my suggestion, or maybe take action, call attention, or maybe make a suggestion. So, and when to really try to influence others to go your way. So there are certain times where you need that type of individuals who should be willing to step up and speak up, but at the same time a collective team around him who can try to do check and balance. And again, it requires a design that you'll have to depart from existing cultures. You just have to respect that the existing cultures are not designed that way, but perhaps we can in the future create this kind of culture by design, and starting them young so that they know it's a way of life to exercise leadership in whatever role they have. That's why effective followership is really self-empowerment, knowing when to follow, when to maybe ask questions before you follow, when to sometimes question orders. Because if you see something better, what's wrong with telling your boss that I have something better in mind? See? So that kind of open relationship where, as Neil says, a good idea has no rank. It can come from anywhere. Okay. Thanks again for that insight, Mary. And I think that's a challenge for all of us
Yes,
to
thank you.
help design that kind of culture wherever we are. We're in our own unique culture. Okay, can we hear from the younger generations, the ones who will design the generations who can design cooperative leadership where they are and promote that as a way of life? Can we have any other thoughts? Just unmute yourself. Okay, do we have Neil back?
Neil is not yet.
Oh,
He dropped again,
we see.
and he sent to me the email. He will be back anyway.
Mhm.
The Wi-Fi condition is not good there. Okay, okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Mhm. Yeah.
Can we hear from the other participants?
Hello,
I'd like to
James.
hear from the young generations.
Young generation.
What has
right.
been your experience of this type of collaborative, cooperative leadership? How do we depart from the command and do commando training to uh, inspire and unleash people's talents towards making good things happen? Can we hear from our participants in yeah, Rebecca, please.
Again, Rebecca again.
Just something to think about. There is a saying in Cameroon that one hand cannot tie a bundle. One hand cannot tie a bundle, which means that for any activity, any project to succeed, everyone has to collaborate, everyone has to participate. And oh, and so I'm I am so sorry. Let me answer this call, please. Sorry. But let's be
Okay.
um, let's put this I don't know parable in the context of cooperative leadership. And it then makes sense that in order for a community to thrive, in order for a country to thrive, in order for any project to be executed to at the highest level with interest and impact on the society, everyone's collaboration is needed. Yes, we need thinkers, we need people who will direct, we need people who execute, we need people who will assess,
Mhm.
and we need people who will overall as I cannot
We need access to the collective genius of people
and
around
also
us.
thinking about the future, thinking about the future. That's the point I was going to make. Yes. So it makes sense that collaboration, it takes time. It takes time and it takes a bit of convincing the masses, people involved to see the benefits to everyone in this. That makes sense in theory, but practically, we have a situation where, especially now in the United States, like Mary just mentioned, we get up in the morning, leadership is chaotic. I'm even afraid to say this because I don't know if the ISIS or whatever will be knocking on my door to investigate me. But that is unfortunately the current state of affairs in the world's, and I put this in quotation mark, most advanced country. What I don't see how, if it is possible to, it's really frustrating to reverse the situation in a collaborative manner. We know we have the three different branches of government that are supposed to ensure that leadership is not concentrated in one hand. We have seen the outcome of the first 100 days. It's scary and it is indication of what is to come yet. In order to prevent this from happening, how can we convert the concept of one hand cannot tie a bundle into a situation that will save a generation? That's Any thoughts on that? It's for us to think about and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just yes, and look at the situation head on. There's no other way around it. We cannot say, well, maybe. There is no maybe. It's clear.
Well, certainly, if there's any hope, it has to start from where we are, you know, and with the children, the next generation of leaders, how we educate them. And hopefully they can, you know, create a vision for a much brighter future based on their own collective wisdom. Yeah.
My other my other question is the very educational tools that are
Mhm.
supposed to instill in these young people the values of leadership, the values of respect and collaboration are being systematically discouraged and removed from, there is an attack, a physical
Yeah.
attack, financial attack, moral attack on institutions of higher education, which, as we know, were the institutions of higher education was the foundation of a good society. Um, Mary, I see you shaking your head.
You know, this forum would be, I am so anxious to just listen to any perspectives
Yes.
from outside of my own choir. So, so the voices, I mean, I'm looking at
Yeah.
faces, young faces that represent so many different cultures and values and sources of wisdom. And Rebecca, I so appreciate you, the courage and also the wisdom of the way you just phrased that question, because I almost have goosebumps sitting here. I know what you're saying, and there's a real challenge for those of us who value and want to incorporate and be inclusive, and this diversity, equity, and inclusion has suddenly become a type of taboo. But
Yes.
think about that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, is now something that is eliminated,
It's a
wiped
crime.
out every organization, wiped out of access to books. How can that be? Right? So what you are saying is so gently. I just see your voice. I mean, I hear your voice. I know what you look like, but your gentle voice is actually articulating something that is a serious danger in my country. But because of the size of my country, the size of the economy, the size of the military, the power that goes with all of that, it reverberates internationally. We can see it. So I would love to hear any thoughts from those of
Yeah, we
you
have
that I don't even know.
James. James, by the way, James is a good friend of ours from the Ivory Coast. James, kindly unmute. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, James. Go ahead. You may have to adjust your audio so we can hear you well. Go ahead, James.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, our speaker, our guest speaker. The topic and what I've been hearing resonates so much to me because I'm coming from a place as a community development educator. I think that from my experience and my observation for the past years now, I think that education and leadership is going through some crisis that I would call, just like you mentioned, about the crisis of equity, quality, and relevance. And in my opinion, when I look at education today, it seems to me that it's not being as much inclusive as if there is a standardized framework that the way of education, the pedagogy of education should adopt. And I see that many national education authorities, like here in Cote d'Ivoire, have a lot of challenge being open to any educational, any idea or any content that is not in approval within the framework of the education policy here. So, and looking at the situation that we are facing globally, number one, like the area of global citizen or the area of global competence, we know that just like you mentioned about diversity, inclusive, and equity has been fired by your government that is in power now. The policy of that DI is completely fired. But I think that even at that policy level, which is government, is one aspect. The another aspect is the community level. There are something that I learned from Harold Saunda. Harold Saunda was a Secretary General during the time of Jimmy Carter. He says that there are things that only government can do about treaties, agreements, etc. But he said there are things people outside government can do, fostering human relationship. So I think that in education today in the world, I'm not talking about education in terms of normal, regular academia, like all these regular courses that we learn, maybe either geography or to study biology or etc. What I'm talking about is education that really addresses human behavior. How do we see the other? So I think that in schools today, many schools undermine this reality because schools shift their focus from the behavioral aspect of how to bring up a child to become a good citizen. And being a good citizen, a good global citizen, how do you see the other? From a framework, from a background of where you are coming from, either your culture, your history, or even science, even arts, even religion. So I think that in this present time, we are facing this crisis. We need to emphasize another form of leadership. And for me, leadership is about understanding what is needed to be done. That is my way of seeing leadership in this context. What is needed to be done and doing it, and taking that risk of doing it, and when it has to do with bringing humanity, the essence of life at the center, because that is what I see as really missing today. And that is why communities today are disintegrated. We see all this problem of incivility in communities is because of the education has missed what is supposed to represent as an undertaking in terms of shaping human behavior. So in the crisis that I mentioned earlier about equity, absence of equity, quality, and relevance, is focusing on this direction. So I think the collaborative leadership should be how will the community work with government, work with the policymakers to share ideas of what are the challenges at the grassroots level and how we shape education curriculum to really address this behavioral aspect of human life so that children, when they grow up, barriers like ethnicity, racism, or religion will not be a factor that will determine collaborations or cooperations. So I think that that is what I'm doing. And that is really why I supported the idea of transformative education. And that is why I supported here a policy some years back through UNESCO. I was the one UNESCO called upon to offer what I call intercultural civic communication skill. So I brought that to UNESCO and they adopted it. And it gave me opportunity to train teachers from the Ministry of Education in 2014 or 15. But because there is no follow-up in this concept to really ground it into schools for teachers in their teachers' education curriculum to embody this concept, this educational concept, as a way of their curriculum development, so that kids, it will be part of maybe a kind of either elective courses or in have ways to bring it into the curriculum so that we can shape children's behavior, self-awareness, social awareness, organizational management, and even tools that can help for system change. So I think that this is a little contribution that I want to bring into this space. Thank you so much.
Thanks for bringing that and sharing that, James. Offers us hope, no? That it really has to start from individual behavior. And if we can create that kind of culture among the next generation of leaders. Bernard, yes.
Yes, sasalita ako kasi abutan na ako ng ulan dito eh.
Okay.
So, James, stay safe in Africa. I just want to add two things, no? Number one, righteousness without power is just an opinion. And number two, a government big enough to help you is also strong enough to take things away from you. And I think we're seeing that now, not just in Russia, but in America and everywhere else. And I also mentioned before, no, that one more war and we are off to the races because we have Russia and Ukraine, we have Hamas and Israel, and now we have India and Pakistan. One more war, maybe in Africa or in Southeast Asia, and it's going to be World War III. Okay, thank you.
Oh, we lost. Oh. I hope we can get Bernard back. He was mid-sentence when I lost him. He was saying one more war and did you catch that?
War and it's World War III.
Oh, okay.
There is one the chat box.
Okay.
Dr. Sweet, he raised one kinds of question there.
Okay, from Dr. Sweet, thank you very much, Neil. For any participants, give advice for the country where politicians are expertise in collusion rather than cooperative implementation. Okay. Is Neil
Almost
here
everywhere
to
in the
respond
world.
to your question? There is positive collaboration and there's also collusion where a collective number of people can frustrate the democratic process or hold back the collective wisdom. Okay, another person from Kaizu, please unmute yourself from Japan. Kaizu, please unmute. Cannot hear you. You have your hand raised. Kaizu Abiko from Japan.
Nina-san.
Yes, there.
Yes.
Unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
I would like to thank the organization for selecting such an important topic. And Dr. Neil McLennan, his meaningful talk today. I think elections are the system we use to choose the leaders. I feel that it is a rather precious method. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, I also find myself questioning why in international organizations like the United Nations are not functioning effectively in this the 21st century. The discussions held at the UN do not seem to lead us to any constructive proposals. Why? I don't know. Although Japan is the only country to have suffered atomic bombing, and it does not express a clear national stance due to its reliance on the United States for defense, unfortunately. In accordance with our constitution, I don't know, you may know that sense, well, but which prohibited participation in war, any war. Our country only contribute in areas such as medical support and so on. However, as a nation of atomic bombs as survivors, there are instances where citizens express their opinion through the media, placing Japan in a position of international attention. Yet, as I listen to everyone's opinion at this forum, I feel it is the most helpful for me and helpful that as long as there are people around the world who continue to think and reflect, we may eventually find a way, peaceful way, I think so. I would like to say thank you very much to hold this forum, Kansan-ho, and other members. Thank you very much. That's
Thank you,
all.
Kaizo. Thank you for sharing, Kaizo. I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody here in this forum, you
Yeah.
can always bring this conversation wherever you are
Mm.
and find it. Hopefully, we can find ways to build it. If we can design it in our mind, hopefully we can build it where we are in the way we deal with one another and the way we educate our next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
Hey, any other thoughts from our other members? Okay, I was hoping Neil could still join us for a few final words, and yeah, we all benefited from what he shared, and yeah, unless there are other comments, I turn this back to you. There's Rebecca. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe we are getting old and we need to have another session where the young people will tell us what they think about uh, the 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 kind of leadership that they want to
Yeah.
be in the future. We have failed them, or obviously we are failing them. That's all.
And that hopefully they do a better job than and learn from our mistakes. No, we have young students listening right now. I we hope to hear your thoughts in this. We hope you could bring this conversation to your level where you are with your friends, and hopefully for us to collectively design a better way forward. No? There's so much uncertainty that we just have to continue to learn, do our own research, maybe experiment at whatever level we can to build that kind of culture of individual and collective wisdom of learning. That's why maybe it's nice that Neil pointed out we need to have cooperative learning if we are to have cooperative leadership, because we have to collectively continuously see our role and see that leadership is not a position, it's a choice, and that each and every one of us will have to exercise leadership in our own specific role, in our own specific responsibility, and hopefully in our own way of creating that kind of culture that we're looking for, where we could gather the collective genius of everyone around us, at the same time have a clear coherent direction about the future. Um, I have been mentored by Dr. Steven, and what I always remember from him, he said, Raymond, in the simplest sense, leadership is about communicating to people their worth and potential. See, let them see that leadership is really about each and individual exercising their choice. The choice to empower themselves, to take action when needed, to speak up when needed, but also to listen when needed and to follow when needed. So it's really about individuals learning from each other, and eventually the job goes to the most capable person. See, in the same way, all of those cardinal, any of them can be our next pope at any time, but they're still reflecting on it and praying over it, uh, listening to their conscience and the Holy Spirit. If they will be inspired as to who is the worthy successor to the throne of Peter. See, so that's a monarchical setup. But it's also collective in a way that each individual may be flawed. None of them are perfect, but we can learn from one another's imperfection and together fill up one another's gap and find a way to move forward. Okay, can we have any other thoughts from the rest? Okay, I hope Neil could still join us. Yeah, back to you, Sung-ho.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Neil McNair. Okay, Neil McLennan from Scotland, okay, the UK. He joined us. He wears, we call it many caps. Okay, he wears many caps. He's like a political leader in his local political leader, and he's an educator, consultant. His schedule is tight, very very tied up. He's tied up with very many different jobs and busy schedule. And I thank Neil for sparing his time. It's like when I check London time, I sent in my previous notice a long time, 11:30. But my friend in Europe, he pointed this the time is different. Okay, I check it. 12:30 is just a noon time. Okay,
Right.
and okay, and maybe he has a schedule. He informed me after 2 hours he should move to his next schedule. Anyway, his Wi-Fi condition, okay, the situation was not very favorable, and the connection was not very good. Anyway, he could finish his presentation, and I really thank you, today's moderator, Raymond, okay, Kireko, for the in charge of all this
Yes.
proceeding to this wonderful discussion. Another expert, okay, the expert of leadership education. Okay, thank you very much. And Rebecca Delancey, Professor Delancey gave us very good the suggestion. One time we can organize like this same topic, leadership, organized by the youth members, okay, like it's some young generation. And I think it's possible, okay, I'll accept it and will consider, okay, one time organized by the young leaders, okay, young leaders, our young generation. And I also very thank you the Kaiju-san from Abiko City. Abiko City. She invited me to Abiko many years ago, more than 10 years ago. Okay, we thought about like some youth exchange program for the more like promoting the peace and the reconciliation between two countries. And I know the Kaiju-san served as a city council, okay, city council. So I think this leadership, practiced her leadership as a city council. Okay, she gave us very good comments about the role of Japan in promoting peace in this area. And also James Uff, my friend James Uff from Africa. Okay, he's another expert of the leadership. Okay, leadership education. Okay, and
global
also,
citizenship. He added
exactly
that
right.
the idea
And
of a global citizen.
right, and Mary Jo. Okay, I was wondering some leadership education in the Carter School. Carter School. Okay, I think it's very important. So sharing her ideas with us. Okay. So thank you very much for your participation. And even though speaker could not join us at the end of this the forum, but I'd like to express my sincere thanks to today's presenter and moderator and all participants here. Just before ending our forum, I'd like to announce our schedule. Okay, next schedule. 2 weeks later. Okay, 2 weeks later is May 22nd. May 22nd. The topic is very interesting. The future of U.S. democracy. Okay, the future of U.S. democracy. Trump's leadership and its implication for global peace and the new world order. Okay, sounds very interesting. Okay, it's to continue another leadership of the U.S. The incumbent President Trump. Okay, and this is influence to neighboring or world. Okay, the global the world new world order. Okay, so I think it's very timely. Okay, it's a topic too. And the speaker presenter is Dr. Montai Narayan Datta. Okay, he's the professor at University of Richmond. Okay, he will be here in Korea soon in May. Okay, in the middle of May with 15 the students to join here in Korea for the like kinds of summer school. Okay, so he will be here in next month, this month, the May. And the May 2nd, 22nd, he will be a speaker. He will deliver his presentation here in Korea. Okay, the time is okay. Otherwise, he should in the middle of the night. But time, okay, he will be here this month here in Korea. So he will join us as a speaker on May 22nd. So I hope you can join us, okay? Hope join us and welcome all of you to our next forum, okay? Thank you very much, okay? And have a wonderful week, okay? Wonderful day and good night and have a good day, okay? Hope to see you in our next forum. Okay, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take good care. Bye-bye. Okay.
Bye bye.